Hi there everyone, Lars here, with a special writer's review brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And this particular writer's review, I want to talk about Alita Battle Angel. This movie just recently came out. I've already gone to see it twice. I personally really enjoyed it, and there was something in the story within this movie that really stuck out to me. When I got home from the theater the first time I watched it, there was something that was just churning in my mind, and I was trying to figure out what is it that made this particular experience, watching this particular movie, so enjoyable. And when I went back to see it a second time, it finally clicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, this movie takes the trope Born Sexy Yesterday and totally flips it on its head in a way that is both believable and enjoyable. For those of you who don't know what trope I'm talking about, the whole Born Sexy Yesterday, to break it down really easily, this trope is basically that usually a really beautiful woman, it can be a man, but usually it's a woman, arrives in the story. She is just gorgeous, awesome, can totally kick butt and take names, and she is just naive like there's no tomorrow. And as a result, she has to rely on the main character, man, to help her through just everything that happens in the story, to help understand the world, to understand herself. When the time comes for it, she's the one who comes in clutch and really does some awesome stuff, beats up the bad guys, but then she fawns over the guy because, oh my gosh, you're my savior, you're my protector, you're my reason for living. And yeah, that's basically Born Sexy Yesterday. And if you think it sounds ridiculous, it basically does. Whether it be a man or a woman who is the character that was born sexy yesterday, it's just, you think about it and you're like, wait a second, people actually go for this kind of stuff right here? I mean, I guess they do because the movie The Fifth Element is super popular, and a lot of people were looking at Alita Battle Angel, especially when you look at just the overall summary of the story, where you have the cyborg who has forgotten who she is. She can't remember, but she's programmed for war. She's super cute, especially with those big eyes. And it seems like she must rely on the men in her life in order to survive this cruel world and the story. But ultimately, that's not what Battle Angel is. What's really neat is that, yes, it starts off with Alita being really awkward and super naive, and it works because we're being introduced to a world that we ourselves as the audience don't know. It is a very compelling futuristic post-apocalyptic world where humanity has had to band together after a massive war under the shadow of this floating majestic city, Zalam, and humanity basically, as I said, surviving in the shadow. They're given purpose by this floating majestic city, but they're living like junkyard dogs in the junkyard of one of humanity's last ground cities. And things are pretty rough, but it's also super unique. And so it's all new for us. We're getting to experience this very well fleshed out, very deep world through Alita's eyes, and so her naivety mirrors our own in many kind of ways. However, what's really great is that whereas her programming as a warrior would usually be used in the Born Sexy Yesterday trope as a way of protecting the two men in her life, Hugo and Dr. Ido, as they propel the story forward, instead, it's more that Alita uses her programming and her special skills to protect them as she pushes the story along. This is where the trope begins to be subverted because she's not relying on Hugo or Ido to do much for her other than provide necessary explanations. Instead, they're more like her guide, as she then says, well, I'm going to go here with my life. I want to learn more about myself by doing this. I will be the one to decide what I ultimately want to be and what I want to do. And this gives her a whole lot of autonomy, which usually Born Sexy Yesterday characters don't have. And there's a really great part in the movie. This was a scene that simultaneously is hilarious, is stupidly awkward, and at the same time is brilliantly epic, which is a super weird combination to have. But it's the scene where Alita takes Hugo to go into a bar meant for people called hunter warriors. These are bounty hunters who have been hired by the floating city to ensure that there is order amongst the junkyard people, to hunt down murderers, to keep the peace and stuff like that. And Alita and Dr. Ido are being hunted by a murderer who at one point had the highest bounty on his head, but has since been removed from the records, all part of this big conspiracy. And she goes in and, in a very naive way, calls for these hunter warriors to join with her as she hunts down this killer. But, of course, no one is going to take her seriously. She just became a hunter warrior herself, and she has no kills to her name. And because of the way she looks super ridiculous in their eyes, and like she's not a threat at all. And yeah, the words that she used are just, once again, super naive. However, she uses this as an opportunity. It's almost like she knows that, yeah, I might sound super naive, but I know what I want. I want to protect myself. I want to protect the man who rebuilt me, who is like a father to me. And I want to protect other people. That is who I want to be as a person, as an individual. I can't defeat this man on my own. I need help. And so I'm going to get help from the best of the best. And if you're not going to give it to me, then so help me, I will use my warrior programming to kick all your butts. Which is the ultimatum that she then gives. And you proceed to get this amazing, hilarious bar scene brawl, which then leads to a really cool showdown between Alita, these hunter warriors, and then the big murderer of the story. And it's at this moment where also, if you thought that Alita was a Mary Sue at all within the story, you begin to see how she also defies that particular identity, because usually, when you have a Mary Sue within a story, the universe around the Sue character bends itself to the Mary Sue's will in order to give the Mary Sue the best outcome. In this case, within this bar brawl, not only have we seen the naive character stepping up and being the one to kind of lead this whole new change and to really assert herself, but she comes out of it as the loser. And as a result, it changes a whole lot of her perspective, it changes a whole lot of what she wants to do as a character, and it helps move the plot forward in a way where Alita now has to overcome even more obstacles. So within the scene, both the whole Mary Sue trope is thrown out the window, and the Born Sexy Yesterday trope becomes subverted. It's a process that is really, really neat, because by the end of the movie, whereas Alita was the naive, helpless girl at the beginning, at the end, she is quite literally, in every sense of the way, now a fully realized adult woman who knows exactly who she is, what she wants to become, and what her goals are. She's no longer naive to the world. She is in full command of her own story, and she is leading the story of those around her, not because she is a Mary Sue around whom the world bends, or because she is the Born Sexy Yesterday character that needs to be cared for, but rather because she is now the heroine of the story. And that was something that, as I saw the movie for the second time and I saw the end scene, the end clip, it was so satisfying. I know that for a lot of people it probably won't be, because it feels a whole lot like the Fellowship of the Ring, because it ends and you're like, wait a second, Where's the rest of the story? When are we going to have the epic showdown between the good guy and the bad guy? When are we going to get our resolution? And you have to kind of accept, well, there's a whole lot of story left to tell, but it ends at just the right place because Alita's character arc has been completed up until a certain point where you can say that, yes, she has now become the hero that the story needs her to be. And that is fantastic. And that is the way that the movie subverts the trope of Born Sexy Yesterday, which is, as I kind of described at the beginning, sounds like a terrible thing, but when you actually get to see what the movie does to it, it becomes a great plot device for developing a fantastic heroine. And that is something that I absolutely love about Alita Battle Angel. There are some things within the movie that are definitely less than stellar, but if you haven't seen the movie yet, I highly recommend it. If anything, just to see a fantastic hero's journey that subverts multiple tropes and delivers, quite honestly, a really beautiful coming-of-age story on top of that as well. There's some really, really great moments that I would love to get into more, but that would make this video go on even longer, and I've already said my piece that I wanted to say since the very beginning, so I'll leave it at that for right now. If you've already seen the movie, please feel free to comment down below about what you either liked or disliked about the movie. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. And in the meantime, please go check out our episodes of Camille's Harem on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. There you will find some really great writing advice. You'll get to hear some really great dialogue between us, the members of the Harem, because that's one of the ways that we really bring out some of the best writing advice we have found is when we have a dialogue with each other. We also have art to check out on our Tumblr, some really great writing exercises that Camille has assembled on our Pinterest, and I have also updated my story, Misventures, which you can find on Royal Roads, as well as our other stories that we have posted for the masses, which we highly recommend you go and you check out what we're doing with those. If anything, to either laugh in our faces because you think that we're being ridiculous, or to give us some awesome feedback, because you know what? One of the best ways of improving as a writer is to receive feedback. So please go ahead and do that. Links for all of those sites are in the description, as well as a link to our Twitter, because we would love to get some links to terrible fan fictions from you guys, ones that you guys have come across yourselves that you think are absolutely deplorable, so that way we can do epic readings of them for your enjoyment. And, well, that's all for now. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, tschüss.